It happened not with a confrontation, not with a press release, not even with a carefully worded announcement crafted by a team of publicists. It happened in a room where only a few people truly understood the weight of what was being decided. The music industry had been preparing for something monumental, practically salivating at the possibilities, envisioning global tours that would shatter records, endorsement deals that would flood networks and storefronts, magazine covers that would sell millions of copies across continents. Every executive with a vested interest in fame, money, and momentum leaned forward, believing they were about to witness the next chapter in one of the most commercially valuable careers the music world had ever seen. Adele had just released another album that cut deeper than any trend, any genre, any marketing plan could ever hope to reach, songs woven with grief, hope, and brutal honesty, songs that made millions of strangers cry in their cars and kitchens, songs that reminded the world what true vulnerability sounded like. The machine smelled opportunity, and it reacted the only way it knew how, by plotting, expanding, building grander stages, longer tours, more merchandise, more exposure, more media saturation. The logic was simple, brutal, and endless. When a product is hot, you flood the market until every dollar is squeezed from it, and when it cools, you simply move on to the next. And so, without her consent, an entire machinery of expectation had already been set into motion, designing a future for Adele that prioritized exploitation over endurance, profit over peace. They expected gratitude, compliance, and hustle. What they received was silence. Not the nervous silence of indecision, but the heavy, absolute silence of someone who has already made a choice, long before anyone dared to ask the question. In a quiet meeting behind closed doors, far from the cameras and the congratulatory handshakes, Adele said no. No to a sprawling world tour that would have raked in hundreds of millions. No to months and years of living out of suitcases and green rooms, performing not out of love, but obligation. No to selling her face, her voice, and her spirit to an industry that measured success by exhaustion and worth by availability. The executives did not know what to say. They had built entire projections on the assumption that Adele, like so many before her, could not resist the gravitational pull of fame and fortune when it arrived so overwhelmingly at her doorstep. But Adele had been famous enough, rich enough, loved enough to realize something that most artists never live long enough to understand. There is a price for everything, and some things are simply too expensive to be worth it. She did not need more money if it cost her peace. She did not crave more adoration if it required self-betrayal. She did not hunger for more stages if it meant losing the very reason she had begun singing in the first place. Most artists, when faced with the tidal wave of global demand, react out of fear that this moment might never come again, that they must grab every opportunity before the public's attention shifts, before the inevitable decline begins. But Adele did not bow to that fear. She recognized that her power was not built on ubiquity. It was built on mystery. It was built on scarcity. And by stepping back, by refusing to flood the world with her presence, she became not just a musician, but an event, a moment in time that could not be mass-produced or replicated. Every absence made her more valuable. Every silence made the world lean in closer. The industry's panic only proved how rare her strategy was, how few had the courage to refuse when so much was being offered. They tried everything: sweeter deals, larger numbers, promises of creative control, flattery, wrapped in desperation, but nothing could sway her, because Adele was not chasing the traditional markers of success anymore. She was chasing something harder to define and infinitely more powerful: sovereignty over her own life. While the world speculated, while fans wondered when and where she would reappear, Adele moved quietly through her life, far away from the red carpets, the award shows, and the corporate meetings that demanded endless self-promotion. She sang when she wanted to sing. She created when she had something real to say. And she waited, not passively, but strategically, allowing time to build a hunger the world could not ignore, a hunger so great that when she finally returned, she would not have to chase opportunity. Opportunity would chase her. The night Adele said no was not a moment of rebellion or rage. It was an act of supreme clarity. It was the moment she refused to be another artist devoured by the machinery of more. More. It was the moment she chose to protect not just her art, but her soul. And in that silence, in that refusal, she began building a future where she would not simply be another icon eventually forgotten, She would be a force no one could afford to overlook. When she finally chose to return, it would not be on the industry's terms. It would be on hers alone, and the world would have no choice but to follow. In a world addicted to noise, Adele built her empire on silence. While the rest of the entertainment industry raced to stay relevant, desperate to fill every moment with tweets, appearances, interviews, and manufactured controversies, Adele made a decision that few artists could even fathom. She chose restraint. It was not hesitation born from fear. It was not indifference cloaked as mystique. It was a strategy calculated with the precision of a chess grandmaster who knows that the most devastating moves are often the ones no one sees coming. Adele understood what the industry had forgotten in its endless thirst for visibility. When you are everywhere, you eventually become invisible. When you saturate every feed, every headline, every stage, the public stops listening. They stop caring. Fame, once a blazing fire, begins to flicker and fade under the weight of overexposure. And so, while others flooded the marketplace, Adele withheld herself. She turned absence into allure, mystery into magnetism, and scarcity into an unstoppable force of demand. Years would pass between her albums, entire cycles where she made no major appearances, granted no interviews, announced no tours, and released no music. Critics questioned if she was retreating, losing her momentum, or risking her place in a world that moved faster with every passing year. But Adele understood something deeper, something instinctive. True demand is never manufactured by volume. It is cultivated through precision. Each time she chose to stay silent, she planted a seed of anticipation. Each time she turned down a magazine cover or a high-profile collaboration, she made herself rarer, more valuable, more urgent in the hearts of the people who loved her work. When Adele finally spoke, finally sang, the world leaned in so closely that you could almost hear it holding its breath. She was no longer simply a singer releasing songs into the endless churn of content. She was an event. She was a moment. And moments, true moments, cannot be ignored. The power of saying less was not about being inaccessible or aloof. It was about ensuring that every appearance, every performance, every word carried weight, meaning, and resonance far beyond the usual noise of celebrity culture. In interviews, when she did grant them, Adele spoke plainly, laughed openly, and revealed her humanity without carefully constructed PR masks. There was no sense of desperation, no hint of someone performing an endless dance for relevance. Her honesty, combined with her scarcity, created an unbreakable bond with her audience. A trust so rare that it could not be bought, only earned, moment by moment, silence by silence. And while others burned themselves out chasing algorithms and headlines, Adele stayed rooted, patient, deliberate, crafting a career that would not depend on trends, but on timelessness. She became an artist the world did not simply enjoy. She became an artist the world needed. And need, true need, is a currency that no amount of marketing dollars can manufacture. By saying less, Adele created space. Space for longing. Space for imagination. Space for her audience to remember what it felt like to miss something, a feeling so foreign in a world drowning in instant gratification that it made her return feel like the arrival of a long-lost friend rather than just another product launch. Every move she made reinforced the lesson that in a marketplace obsessed with quantity, true value lies in quality, in authenticity, and in the bravery to trust that your silence will be louder than someone else's noise. Her strategy was simple, but it was not easy. It required strength to resist the temptations of easy money, the lures of constant visibility, the fear of being forgotten in a culture that demands endless self-promotion. It required faith in her art, in her audience, and, most importantly, in herself. Because in the end, Adele knew something that so many artists, executives, and brands still fail to understand. You do not have to chase every opportunity. When you create something truly rare, truly honest, and truly extraordinary, opportunities will chase you. And when that happens, you do not negotiate from a place of desperation. You negotiate from a throne. Adele was not simply preparing her audience for a comeback. She was preparing the industry for a reckoning. The day she chose to return, she would not need to ask for attention. She would command it. And when the negotiations for her next chapter began, it would be the industry, not Adele, that would come begging. The offers began quietly, like smoke slipping under a closed door, carried by managers, whispered by agents, carefully crafted in boardrooms where executives placed bets on an artist who had redefined what demand truly meant. Las Vegas did not merely want Adele, it needed her with a desperation that no marketing plan could disguise, a hunger born from understanding just how rare it is to witness lightning, captured inside a living voice. The city of Neon had built its second empire on residencies, learning that nostalgia filled hotel rooms and sold steak dinners, but true cultural phenomena, living legends in their prime, rebuilt entire fortunes overnight. And Adele, with her haunting voice and her ability to unite millions in shared heartbreak, represented not just a residency opportunity, but a once-in-a-generation catalyst that could reshape an entire economic ecosystem. The numbers they offered her were staggering, numbers large enough to make seasoned moguls pause, numbers designed to collapse hesitation and silence doubt in an instant. 7-figure guarantees per show, private jets on standby, ownership shares in the ticketing structure. Every luxury imaginable was placed delicately at her feet, not just to tempt her, but to cage her in a golden contract she would have trouble refusing. Most artists would have accepted without blinking, their managers shaking hands before the ink had even dried, overwhelmed by the idea of earning a lifetime's fortune in a few short months of work. But Adele did not move from fear. She did not move from hunger. She moved only when the moment perfectly aligned with her vision, her control, and her standards, and this moment, for all its glittering promises, was not yet right. She turned them down, without anger, without fanfare, and without the need to explain herself to an industry still learning that she was not a product to be processed on someone else's assembly line. By refusing their initial offers, Adele demonstrated a level of discipline that even some of the most powerful artists in history had struggled to maintain. She understood the deeper truth behind every negotiation. The person willing to walk away always holds the real power. Every no Adele delivered deepened the city's thirst for her presence. Every passing month turned interest into obsession, turned generous offers into desperate please, turned simple negotiations into battlegrounds where her leverage grew heavier and more undeniable. Because the truth is, Las Vegas was not just offering Adele a residency. Las Vegas was offering Adele their reputation, their credibility, their future prestige wrapped in dollar signs. And Adele knew exactly what she was worth. When the offers returned, they were no longer framed as deals. They were framed as tributes. Venues offered to rebuild entire stages from scratch to fit her artistic vision, committing millions just to create the space she would find worthy of her performances. Casinos bent their timelines, redesigned their marketing campaigns, and shifted their entire hospitality ecosystems to orbit around the gravitational pull of her presence. When Adele finally decided to say yes, it was not because the money had become too good to refuse, it was because the terms had evolved to reflect the sovereignty she demanded. She negotiated a schedule that prioritized her health and her voice over revenue targets, a rarity in an industry where burnout was often factored into the business model. She secured full creative control over the show's design, the ticketing structures, and even the promotional materials, ensuring that every element of the residency aligned with the authenticity her brand demanded. And the structure of the deal itself was a masterpiece of negotiation. Not just an upfront fee, but strategic ownership stakes in surrounding revenues. Not just a paycheck for performances, but long-term upside in the success she was guaranteed to ignite. Reports estimated that Adele's residency would generate well over $600,000 per show, with total revenues soaring into the hundreds of millions when accounting for ticket sales, merchandise, exclusive dining packages, and surrounding tourism spikes. But even those staggering numbers failed to capture the true magnitude of what she achieved. Because the real victory was not the money itself. The real victory was the preservation of her autonomy, the affirmation that she could play the game on her own terms, without sacrificing the mystique and scarcity that made her irreplaceable. In a city famous for burning through talent like gasoline, Adele arrived not as another performer desperate for a second act, but as a sovereign entity demanding the city bend itself to her will. And bend it did. Because when you make the world wait, when you understand your value so deeply that you refuse to chase opportunities, you create a reality where opportunity has no choice but to chase you. Adele had not just flipped the script. She had rewritten the rules entirely. And as the curtain rose on her first performance, with ticket prices reaching heights unseen, even in Vegas' long, glittering history, it became clear that she had done more than secure a deal. She had set a new standard for every artist who would dare to follow. While the industry flooded itself with endless releases, collaborations, interviews, and viral moments that blurred into one another until nothing felt special anymore. Adele moved with the quiet confidence of someone who understood that rarity is the oldest and most powerful form of value. She was not afraid to be absent. She was not afraid to be missed. In fact, she knew that being missed was her greatest weapon. Scarcity, when wielded correctly, does not diminish an artist's power, it magnifies it, wrapping their work in an aura of preciousness that no marketing budget could ever manufacture. Every year that Adele remained silent, the myth grew larger, the hunger deeper, the reverence more absolute. And while other artists watch their ticket sales plateau, their streaming numbers fluctuate, and their relevance rise and fall like tides dictated by public attention spans, Adele's stock rose higher with every passing season. She was not just building anticipation. She was teaching the world to wait. In an era addicted to immediacy, where entire albums are forgotten within weeks and stars are expected to live their lives publicly at all times to maintain their relevance, Adele dared to treat her art and her audience with patience and respect. She released no filler projects to keep her name trending. She launched no rush singles chasing viral moments. She did not use social media as a performance stage, revealing every mundane detail of her life to strangers for attention crumbs. Instead, Adele made herself rare. And in that rarity, she made herself indispensable. The longer she remained away, the more the world realized that no one else could fill the void she left behind. No other voice soothed heartbreak quite the same way. No other songwriter captured the bittersweet ache of living quite so honestly. No other performer balanced global fame with such intense relatability, carrying the weight of superstardom without severing the delicate thread of humanity that connected her to her fans. By refusing to overexpose herself, Adele protected not just her image but her essence. She allowed herself to change privately, to grow without scrutiny, to heal without performance, ensuring that when she did return, she brought with her not just another product to be consumed but another chapter of a real, evolving story. Scarcity made her not just desired but trusted. Because in a world where everyone seemed desperate to sell something, Adele never made her audience feel like a transaction. She made them feel like a reunion. And that feeling, the sense of reconnection rather than consumption, is what turned every album release into a cultural event, every tour announcement into an international celebration, every residency appearance into a once-in-a-lifetime pilgrimage. The economics of scarcity are ruthless and unforgiving to those who do not understand them. But for those who master it, scarcity transforms ordinary opportunities into monumental paydays, inflates brand value beyond normal market forces, and cements legacy in ways that constant exposure could never hope to achieve. Adele did not simply create scarcity by vanishing. She curated it. She managed the spaces between her projects as carefully as she managed the projects themselves, ensuring that every return felt necessary, like a missing piece falling perfectly back into place. And when she finally stepped back into the spotlight, whether through a whisper of a new album, a rumor of a tour, or a confirmed Vegas residency, the world responded with overwhelming, almost desperate enthusiasm. Tickets vanished within minutes. Merchandise sold out before the ink could dry on the announcement banners. Streaming numbers exploded, not just for her new releases, but for her entire back catalog. As old songs found new audiences and longtime fans reignited their emotional bonds, scarcity turned her career into something larger than sales charts or marketing demographics. Scarcity turned her into a living legend, a figure whose presence or absence could shift entire economies, redefine entertainment models, and remind a cynical, impatient world what it meant to truly wait for something worth having. In the world Adele built, you did not scroll past her. You stopped everything for her. You made time for her. You remembered that art, real art, is not meant to be consumed in endless streams but savored, treasured, and remembered. And behind that power, behind the carefully measured silences and calculated absences, was a financial and emotional truth that every creator should etch into their bones. When you make yourself scarce, you do not just maintain your value. You multiply it. You become not just wanted. You become essential. And Adele had become nothing less than essential to a world desperate for something real. At the heart of Adele's journey, through silence, through scarcity, through negotiation and mastery, lies a truth so fundamental that most artists, and even most entrepreneurs, never dare to fully confront it. You either control the game, or the game controls you. There is no middle ground. There is no safety in compromise when the system itself is built to consume, to dilute, and to discard those who fail to protect themselves. Adele never allowed herself to become just another product to be sold, shelved, and forgotten once the next new voice arrived. She understood from the very beginning that if she wanted to endure, not just survive the brutality of fame but transcend it, she had to play by a different set of rules entirely. Rules where patience outweighed panic. Rules where silence spoke louder than noise. Rules where scarcity was not a weakness to be overcome, but a weapon to be sharpened. When she said no to endless touring, when she walked away from initial Vegas offers, when she turned down the temptations of constant exposure and quick cash, she was not rejecting opportunity. She was defining it. She was molding it into something sustainable, something sovereign, something she could hold on to without sacrificing her voice, her health, her soul. Through every decision, she taught a lesson the industry itself struggles to accept. You do not win by being everywhere. You win by being the only one who matters when you choose to show up. The Vegas residency, the sold-out arenas, the streaming surges, the timeless albums. They were not accidents, not gifts, not strokes of luck. They were the result of ruthless clarity, brutal patience, and the unwavering belief that true value is never given. It is demanded, it is curated, and it is protected at all costs. Adele never chased headlines. She chased legacy. She never chased trends. She chased truth. And because of that, she now stands atop an empire not built on endless hustle, but on relentless self-respect. The world made room for her not because she begged for it, but because she forced it to. Recognize that real talent, real heart, and real art are not disposable. They are rare. They are sacred. And when someone has the courage to treat their gift that way, the world, even an impatient, distracted world, will wait as long as it takes to witness it. If there is one lesson to take from Adele's financial journey, it is this: create scarcity. Make your value undeniable. Refuse to be rushed, refuse to be cheapened, and refuse to be afraid of absence. Because when you build something truly extraordinary, you do not need to chase opportunities. Opportunities will line up to chase you. Subscribe to Money and Fame to uncover more untold financial stories behind the world's biggest celebrities, the victories, the struggles, and the lessons written in gold. Which celebrity's financial story should we tell next? Write it in the comments. Thank you, and see you soon.